Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're going to talk about another kind of overlap between the forest school and bushcraft world in a little carving project in making these mushrooms. This is a fantastic little project for some of your more advanced learners, some who have been with you for a little while longer, as it requires a bit more dexterity, requires a bit more force, so it is well suited to the older children or to adults as well who really do enjoy making them. So if you're interested in knowing how to either make one of these for your sessions or just have a go at yourself, then keep watching. I'll see you in a moment. As with any wood carving project, the first thing we need to source is some appropriate wood. And again, same as for most of my carving projects, I enjoy working with hazel, partly because I have a lot of hazel on the sites that I use, and also because it's a prolific tree. It grows really nice and straight, and it responds well to being coppice, so having bits and pieces taken over the course of years. So for those of you who haven't seen them before, these are what hazel leaves look like. You see you've got a kind of zigzag pattern of leaves, a little point at the top and right at the edge, and you'll grow nice straight stems like this with this kind of speckled brown look. So what you're looking for, I'd say, is about thumb thickness and beyond. So that kind of ness, you can go bits thinner and get some really delicate mushrooms out of it, but this is the kind of you're looking for. And you want to start off with some nice long straight pieces, because the rule with carving, particularly if you are working with people who don't have very much dexterity or younger children, is you want to leave the wood long for as long as possible, to give them something solid to hold on to so that the knife is working well away from their hand. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to cut a decent length. Like I say, probably like a couple of hands worth. We're not going to use very much, but you want to have, as I said, space to grip and then a space to carve. So maybe a hand and a half is about where I'm going to go. If you're a longer time viewer of the channel, then you'll probably know that I advocate quite strongly for using sawhorses and either having one set up or bring one along with you for all of your sawing sessions. It just increases safety so much. Failing that, a good distance from your hand and the saw blade is nice to have. Here I'm just stepping on it. So I'm just cutting off the end to get a flat surface in case I need that. And then, as I said, hand and about a half. Now the next step is to design the mushroom, to design the proportions of it. So it can be helpful if you have a pen or something. And what you're doing is you're just looking to go, okay, do I want a mushroom with a really long, tall cap? Or do I want something that has a comparatively shorter cap, more of a kind of standard fairy mushroom shape? And then you're just going to mark the bottom of where you want the cap to be. So I'll go for probably this sort of size from there. So I'm just going to make a mark. Yeah, I'm just going to scrape away a bit of the bark with my fingernail. But any kind of mark that you make, that just indicates where start of that is. And then you want another mark for however long the stem is going to be. This will help us just set out the proportions. Then our next step is to create a rounded or domed top. Now that is usually accomplished with lots and lots of cuts. So you can start off with quite simple, just push cut. You just go push, work your way around, putting your knife in right at the point where you mark the bottom of the stem cap and just pushing towards the end. Now this is where having a freshly cut piece or green wood is really a good idea, because you have to work a lot harder if the wood has been seasoned, it's been drying for a while. Again, you can kind of use more of a shoulder to give more of a push there, but as you're starting off, the first few works round the top of the mushroom is going to be quite easy, and then it gets harder and harder because you are starting to cut against the grain of the wood. So you can imagine the grain as a bundle of straws in the tree. So the tree grows up with these bundle of straws. It's quite easy to split. Splitting doesn't take a lot of effort. In fact, it can happen even when you don't want it to. But when we are carving into the middle, we're carving across several of those straws. So it is going to be harder work. This is where we start adapting our techniques. So once we've got as far as we can with the push cut and we need a little bit more strength, we'll go work on the thumb cut. So again, thumb cut is point where you want to carve with your holding thumb. You lift up your holding thumb, knife goes underneath, thumb on the back of the blade, make sure it's the back, and you're just going to gently push. You can also create more of a levering motion. See, this is where you can see that this is something that the younger or more, weaker, but the ones who don't have as much physical strength, don't have as much physical strength may struggle a bit. You can also have it on the back of the knife handle and kind of create a levering motion. I'm going to go around. I'm going to try and get a little bit evener on where I start. It's nice to do this before you start the stem, because you can get a bit more force on it. See, it's lots and lots of little cuts. So we're creating many different facets. So I'm quite pointy now. So just to round it off, I'm just going to take the top off and then work around again. The more cuts I make, the more facets I add, the more rounded the look is. Once we've got our cap to the desired roundness and we've got the shape that we want, we can now start on the stem. So we're going to go back to the saw. Now if you've left the wood quite short, this is going to be slightly more awkward. But the longer the piece of wood, the easier it is going to be to get it to hold it in place. Or slot into a sawhorse. Something that helps will be a saw with a fine tooth blade. A lot of you know that I'm a big fan of the fine bladed silkies, fine toothed silkies, as they just offer a very smooth cut without a lot of jerking. A bit more like a standard carpentry saw, which you can also use for this kind of project. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a little cut right below the cap, and I'm just cutting in a couple of millimeters. I just want to sever the fibers all the way around, just to reduce the risk of me splitting my whole cap off. And they might also help to mark exactly where the bottom of your stem is going to be. Yeah, I'm just going to drag the saw around. Again, we've just cut in a couple of millimeters to the top, just to help us start off, just to create a stop cut. You can also do this with a knife and a mallet. So we can get our knife in the top, and this might be a better job for the younger ones, and then you can take something a bit more solid than that piece of hazel that I'm using and just tap it and work our way around. We just want a stop cut. They'll then allow us to work from here, and that first cut is going to be the hardest one, because you want to come in with a little bit of control and you want to make sure to stop. So it's trying not to use too much force. So just go work your way around. Just take the bark off to start off with. Use a thumb push if you can, just to give you that control, because a thumb push limits the amount of movement. Because if you're pushing with your whole arm, it's more likely to slip and carry on going. Whereas if you're just moving with a thumb, there's a limit to how far the knife can travel. So we're limiting travel, just taking the bark off first. I reckon I've probably gone too tall with the stem, but it might just be a really thin. And once we've got that initial cut, we can start going a little bit deeper. So we're starting off at the bottom here, and we're carving up towards that stop cut in the cap. Now we're naturally going to go a little bit deeper to go towards the cap. So be careful and don't rush it. Don't try and take off too much in one go. This is where having a really sharp knife and patience comes in. I'm always a big advocate of having sharp tools, but I understand it is tricky to keep on top of these things. Yeah, if the curls don't come out like that, and if they just hold on, we can just get our knife in the top, wiggle it a little bit, and they'll pop out. We're just going to keep working our way all the way around, just pushing towards the top. As you can see, I've done a bit of work on this, and you can see we've got a kind of strong angle coming from there, so I'm digging in more as I go up towards the cap. Now if you wanted a straighter stem, a stalk, then you would just start off with quite a steep angle and then curve in. So if I use, so we go come in quite steep, can make a big cut, and then we're going to carve up towards the end. This will give the stalk a straighter appearance than the more angled that side. So, and it's personal choice. If there's a particular mushroom that you're looking to recreate, it can be helpful to have pictures handy for inspiration. Or if you wanted to kind of tie this back to the woods and build that connection, you could, at this time of year, go out for a mushroom hunt, find some mushrooms and see if you can recreate them in your forest school or bushcraft setting. And all you're going to do now is you're just going to keep going until your stem is as thin as you want it to be. Now if your mushroom stem is starting to look a bit like this, chances is a good indication that you've gone a little bit hard and been a little bit over eager. So this is where you're going to have to start working a little bit more slowly and a little bit more carefully. Just looking at those facets, just trying to carve it away gently, because that stem there is now going to be really delicate. So ideally you want to catch it before that. Learn from my mistakes. I was just trying to do this roughly and quickly for the video. But just little movements take off little bits, and when you're applying pressure here, just be really gentle. I say a sharp knife is a massive asset. So I've gone as far as I can on the top of the stem, still a little bit rough, but I'll come and neaten that up. And now I'm just going to look to thin down the bottom. I say if you want a bit more of a straight stem, and you're just looking for a scooping motion, so you're going to come almost in and up. Ideally with that thumb as a bit of a lever, just helping you make those controlled, careful motions. As we start getting closer to completion, we're looking for really fine movement, just taking off as little as possible. So there we go. I've just done some finer work just up at the top, just to clear up. If you're working with younger learners and so on, you probably want to head them off before they get this thin, because after that the work that you need to do around the cap to avoid it splitting off needs to be very careful, very controlled. But you can encourage them to keep the stem quite thick, and even just have a kind of vertical from the base to the cap, just a straight line there, and you can make a very usable and very sturdy mushroom very quickly. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to saw through the base to make a little stand for our mushroom. So we're going to come back to the chopping block. Now this will be tricky to do without a saw, but we're just going to cut through. I'm just going to save a little bit of my bark right at the bottom here, hopefully. So fine-tooth saws are ideal for this. Maybe a little hacksaw or something, and a bit of work. And there we go. That's a little mushroom. You can now leave it to dry. Maybe if you want to use some Horrors of Horrors sandpaper to get it a bit smoother. So once it's dried, you can then paint it if you like, leave it as it is. It's really nice if you want to create a display for your forest school, then getting a bit of wood or something around top of a stump, and then glue a couple of these onto there, it would look really nice and be a really nice display that can kind of live out in the woods and become part of it eventually. So there you have it, a cute little mushroom and quite a nice carving project. Even if you are immediately thinking, oh, I'm working with little ones, they'll never get onto something like this, the ages I work with don't involve this, I'd encourage you just to have a go yourself, because this is a really nice thing to do for you. So when you have a bit of free time, maybe before a session, maybe after a session, when you're able to chill a bit, maybe during lunchtime, just to unwind, or when you're out in the woods in your free time, just get a bit of hazel, have a go, make yourself a little mushroom, and your confidence and skills as a leader will improve as well. With that, I want to say a fantastic thank you to Wellness Woodlands for making this video possible by allowing me to film on their beautiful site over in Shropshire. We haven't heard any steam trains so far, so it might be a little bit of a quieter day, but it is really nice at this time of year. We haven't quite hit the really, really cold bits of weather, so if you come now and camp in the woodland, then you will likely have the place to yourselves, and you'll be able to get a whole lot of peace and quiet in this stunning woodland, grassland and amazing campsite. So, and if you would like more activity ideas, I have a link to my PDF of my my top 20 favorite forest school activity ideas, ones that have been tried and tested and I've done so many times. They will eventually all become videos of their own, but as we work through that, it's just a good prompt for ideas. So as I said, links to that down in the description. Thank you so much for watching. As always, remember to make the most of every day, and I'll see you all next time.